instead of looking at base saturation, let's look at the extractable quantity. And when we do that, we have magnesium and milliequivalents and yield on the y-axis and magnesium milliequivalents on the x-axis. The R squared is now 0.36, up from like 0.05 or something. Still not great, but you can see there's a relationship here. This is an exponential plateau curve. And you can see that the yield tends to plateau once we hit about, in this particular case, 1 or 2 milliequivalents of magnesium. But then when you drop below this, you see the yield drop off exponentially, drop off very sharply. And you will see this in paper after paper of correlation data on turfgrass. And in Dr. Baer's own paper, he has the data sitting there waiting to be graphed and waiting to be used. But instead, somehow he got diluted and started looking at the base count of saturation rather than the quantity extracted. Okay, now let's look at potassium and milliequivalents. And you see a very similar graph. Now we're up to R squared of 0.4 from Dr. Baer's own data. You see the yield decline drastically once you get down to below 0.1 potassium and milliequivalents. And as the potassium goes up on in extractable potassium, you see the yield go up until it reaches a maximum at about 0.2 milliequivalents of potassium. Now let's go to calcium. Now we're up to 0.68 R squared. And you see as the potassium declines from 15 down to 10, down to 5, and down to 0, you see a very predictable decline in yield. So yes, these nutrients are having an effect. Yes, the potassium, as he mentioned, as it declines, you see a decline such that it's now becoming deficient as the extractable comes down. Yes, you're seeing that. You're seeing that in calcium too. The yield is dropping drastically as the extractable calcium drops. It has to do with the extractable quantity, not the ratio of one to the other, or not the amount that's on the exchange site relative to another one. And it's in the very same paper published by the author who created it. I don't know how we get into this clown world